Hope in Darkness is a podcast that addresses sensitive topics, including torture, abuse, and human rights violations. Listener discretion is advised. The arrest of Joshua and Tamara Holt on June 30th, 2016, came in the middle of a volatile situation in Venezuela. Accused of holding an illegal weapons cache, they found themselves rounded up and taken to El Helicoide, a prison that housed political prisoners and played host to torture and other human rights violations. At any moment, Josh knew his wife could earn her freedom. All Thamy had to do was turn on him.
While we was in the jail, the cop, they pushing me to sign papers to put over Josh a bad charge, and I never signed that.
As you know, they even tortured her to try to make that happen. Thamy didn't budge.
He's a bad person. He has gun. He's a spy. And I say, no, he's not. How you know? Because I trust in him.
And out of all the things that they were telling her that she was never going to be able to have, for a mom to be told that she'd never see her kids again, I can't imagine what that would be like. But she stayed strong. She knew that all those things that were being said about me weren't true. From that day forward, I've always been grateful that I've known that. And I know how strong our relationship was because of that.
Josh knew he was in a bad situation, but he also figured they'd have to let him go. He thought the entire ordeal would eventually make one of those horrible stories he'd tell people later on.
We used to have what we'd call Hell Week in our football camp, where it was just 3 days all week long, and we called that Hell Week. I thought, man, this now I know what the meaning of Hell Week really is.
Almost a week after their arrest, Josh and Thamy were loaded together into the back of a van. They were headed to the Palace of Justice in Caracas for their preliminary hearing. It's a pair of imposing concrete buildings connected by an arch that crosses over a busy thoroughfare, Boulevard Avenue.
That was the first time I'd seen my wife in a long time. In those 5 days.
Arrested on June 30th, that meant July 4th, 2016, would be Josh's new Independence Day. Or so he hoped.
I remember thinking, okay, this is it. I know I'm going to get my freedom.
It didn't start out very promising. He and Thamy checked their dignity at the courthouse door and were separated again.
I had to go into this room and take off all of my clothes and bend over so that they could check and make sure I didn't have anything. And then from there, they took me to this cell. And this place was literally like a dungeon.
Cement benches lined the walls. And if he needed to relieve himself, he was welcome to use the hole in the corner.
Like going into a porta potty doesn't even accumulate to a little bit of the smell that you could smell there.
Waiting.
And that's where I spent probably the next 8 hours of that day.
Hoping.
I remember when we finally got our names called out, they came and got us out of our cells and started taking us up. I remember thinking, we're going to be freed. You know, they don't have my fingerprints. They don't have anything on us to show that that stuff's really ours.
He assumed court in Venezuela couldn't be that different from the United States.
And that's not the way it was. In fact, when I saw the judge for the first time, I immediately knew that I was screwed.
I'm Becky Bruce, and this is Hope in Darkness, Episode 4, Independence Day.
They had Josh's passport, his driver's license. Things started clicking a little more, thinking, well, this, something bigger is going on here.
A Utah family says their son is sitting in a Venezuelan jail after they say he was framed for being a U.S. spy.
I mean, what do you do when you find out your brother's and got put in prison saying that he was a CIA agent?
In this episode, we go back to Josh's hometown of Riverton, Utah, as his friends and family first learned about everything that was happening to him and Thamy. Thamy and Josh had their first look at prison life from the inside. That's after this. A few days before Josh was taken to the Caracas courthouse, his family was getting ready to celebrate the 4th of July the way they always did. For multiple days leading up to the holiday, the residents of Riverton, Utah enjoy Riverton Town Days. There's a rodeo, a carnival, a parade. There's even a pie-eating contest. American flags line the streets. Kids hold sack races and cornhole tournaments at Riverton City Park. Josh grew up here with his older brother and 2 sisters. It's a small city of about 40,000 people, situated on the southern end of the Salt Lake Valley, about 20 miles south of Salt Lake City. Founded in the 1860s, the city of Riverton has its roots in farming and ranching, but it's become more of a commuter town to the greater urban area. Still, there are traces of the agricultural roots. Driving through, you'll see the occasional field with workhorses between the rows of suburban homes. It's the kind of place where Friday night high school football is a big deal. And as a football kid, Josh made fast friends with his teammates.
My name is Caden Hansen. I've known Josh for, around 15 years.
Yeah, I'm Quinn Alsup. I've known Josh probably 12 or 13 years, I guess.
Lots of football memories. We carpooled together for a couple of years to get to school, and that's how we know each other.
So we played the same position in football. We didn't have a super good start of our friendship. We didn't like each other very much, actually.
Maybe you didn't like me very much, and I didn't know,
maybe.
and I looked up to you.
It comes out that Josh's like, I thought we were tight from the beginning.
Maybe that's the problem. Yeah.
These guys weren't just friends. Really, they're part of Josh's extended family. Quinn remembers they even pranked Josh's mom, Lori, like she was their mom too.
And I remember we came home from school, and I sat in the pantry probably for like 45 minutes, right? Do you remember that? I was sitting there forever. I'm like, I'm going to get her something. I'm like, oh my gosh, come get a snack or something. Like, hurry up.
I ended up saying, like, Mom, can you get something out of the pantry for me?
And I remember, we were there for like 45 minutes. I'm sitting in this freaking tiny pantry, like propped up next to the, Captain Crunch or something. And I remember, but it was worth it. I mean, she slugged me hard, though. I mean, she wouldn't hold them back.
And much like Josh's brother, Derek, not all of Josh's friends were convinced that going to Venezuela to marry a girl he'd just met a few months before was the best idea.
I was really mad at you. I was angry because there was a lot of times.
It's coming out.
And it goes all the way back to, we're on a lunch break, and I remember you telling me, hey, I just been talking to this girl online, and she's from Venezuela. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude.
Before Josh left to get married, there were definitely mixed feelings among his family and friends. His mom, Lori, worried about his safety. Thamy reassured her that she would take care of Josh. And to be fair, here in the U.S., we weren't necessarily getting a complete picture of the crisis in Venezuela. Josh's dad, Jason, remembers being concerned, but not overly so.
We were all nervous for Josh to go down there and do that. Venezuela was bad. It was nothing like when he went, they didn't have the travel warnings. They were still cautionary, but it wasn't as bad when he went, the first of 2016 as it was the end 2016, 2017, when the marches and all that started happening, when the inflation went crazy.
But then came the weekend before the 4th of July, 2016. Caden, Quinn, and some of Josh's family members were attending the parade that Friday, July 1st, just like every other year. The Holt family and Josh's friends had no reason to suspect anything other than that Josh was enjoying his time in Venezuela. Until
we just gotten home from work, and we got a Facebook message that said 911 Josh Thamy prison. And I thought, what the heck is that?
the message was from Tammy's mother. But at first, Jason and Lori thought maybe they were being punked. Or someone was trying to extort them. Then Josh's brother Derek said they got a second message.
Showing that Josh was on Venezuela's newspaper, and it had all of his, his library card and his driver's license and his passport.
Maybe 520s, like $100. His concealed weapons permit. Why he took that out of the country, I'll never know. So when we saw that, things started clicking a little more, thinking, well, this, something bigger is going on here.
The family didn't speak Spanish. Josh's mom, Lori, reached out to her son's friends, Quinn and Caden, who both spoke Spanish after serving missions in South America.
And we were at a 4th of July parade. And I remember getting a call. I think she actually texted me first. Said, hey, Josh is in jail. And I thought, what does that mean? She was just frantic, just out of her mind. Rightfully so, of course.
Yeah, so that's funny to hear, because it's a similar thing. I was sitting at the same Riverton Days parade.
Oh, you were?
And I know that she must have contacted you first, because I'm going to call her Mama Holt, but Josh's mom texts me, and then 2 or 3 minutes later, you text me. You think it's fake, of course, because this couldn't actually be happening.
Caden Hansen did what most of us would do, tried to search for more information.
And I started Googling news reports out of Venezuela and trying to translate. And I remember my wife, who didn't know anything that was going on, kept trying to get my attention to watch the parade or whatever. And I'm just sitting there scrolling like crazy on my phone.
After the parade, everyone headed over to Jason and Lori Holt's home, not far from the city park.
The first thing I did is I went online and tried to find the number to the embassy in Venezuela. So I contacted the U.S. embassy down there, and they were not aware yet of an American being taken.
In fact, Thamy had called the embassy right away when Josh was taken. Josh's parents hit an unexpected roadblock right off the bat.
They were hesitant to give me any information because Josh was over 18.
And I think at that point, I spoke with Tammy's mom, I believe. I think I was the first one to actually speak with her because we didn't still know what was going on.
We just started building up our case, basically, and just started buckling down and just started contacting as many people as we could. My mom is the one that sprung into action.
She was sending probably hundreds of text messages and call after call. And so that from day one, it was just straight, that's all it was about. Looking back on it now, that was the start of a basically 2-year daily, hourly, every single minute. That's what her focus became.
The one thing none of Josh's friends or family could figure out was why. The few articles they had found so far just raised more questions. Where did all those weapons come from? Did Josh really take a grenade with him to Venezuela?
I mean, what do you do when you find out your brother's in a different country that just got put in prison saying that he was a CIA agent, ex-military, whatever, working with the U.S. to go against Venezuela? Did they really frame him? Why would they do that?
We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know if it was going to be a long-term thing, if they just wanted money.
Some rich kid that we're going to send a ton of money because they got the wrong guy, if that's what they're wanting.
The Holts were able to understand through the messages from Tammy's mother and her conversations with Caden and Quinn that the same people who arrested Josh and Thamy planted evidence in Tammy's apartment. But at the same time, from the American perspective, that sounded crazy, like a movie plot.
Is he really in jail, or are they just trying to pull some crap? And when I finally realized this is legitimately real is when they had a picture of your passport and your license. Yeah. And so I remember being mad. How many times did we tell him he shouldn't do this?
Yeah, because I just remember us being really mad, and a lot more things were coming out, and it was 4th of July and it just wasn't the same. I blamed Thamy for a lot of this because it's why would you reach out to an American boy knowing where you live and knowing where he lives?
I didn't have a problem with her at all because we talked a lot. I really liked her. She was really fun to talk to. I just remember the whole situation. I thought, man, why don't you just wait? Why don't you just wait? Let her come here, figure it out. And so I remember it was almost not angry at you for what you did, but it was hard to help feeling a little bit like that.
We went right over here to the park, the Riverton City Park, and watched fireworks. And I don't even think Mom and Dad came. I think they stayed home, actually. And it was me and my sisters. And it just wasn't the same. Really emotional.
Yeah, and you're a pretty tight family, right?
Yeah.
More from inside the prison after this. My life is complicated enough without having to worry about security for my home. But home security has also never been more on my mind. That's why I'm excited to try Simply Safe. Simply Safe was designed to be easy to use while protecting your home 24/7. Order online with the click of a button. Open the box, place the sensors, plug it in, and your home is protected around the clock. Best part of the deal for me, no technician or salesperson had to come and disrupt my house. And there's no outrageous monthly fee or complicated contract. Simply Safe was named Best Overall Home Security of 2020 by U.S. News and World Report, and their 24/7 professional monitoring and emergency dispatch starts at 50 cents a day. Head to simplysafe.com/hope and get free shipping and a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's simplysafe.com/hope to make sure they know that our show sent you. On July 4th, 2016, before meeting the judge at the Palace of Justice, Josh did his best to stay positive.
I haven't talked to a lawyer. I don't know what to expect, but I know I'm going to get my freedom.
He was about to get an education.
We were just sitting on the floor outside of the office door of the judge. And that's where I met our lawyer for the first time.
Thamy and Josh told the attorney everything that happened. The knock on the door, the arrest, the interrogation, the planted evidence. The attorney said, "Don't worry, we'll do what we can to get you out of here."
Today's my Independence Day, and they have nothing on me.
Then they went into the judge's office, and Josh met the judge's eyes and knew they were in trouble.
It was the type of glare that made me feel like I wasn't even a human being. And that's when she said that we were at to go to 45 days of investigation. So for 45 days, we were going to have to go back to Sabine and sit there and wait.
The Sabine, remember, is a government intelligence agency, similar to the American FBI or CIA.
I was just shocked. And we get out of our room and we go to talk to our lawyer, and he just bounced. He just left. We had questions, and there were people all around, and my wife and I were crying and tearing up, and we didn't know what was going on and why and how. And he just left.
Tammy's family had scraped together the money to hire the attorney, but it looks like he just took that money and ran. They never saw that guy again. Guards loaded Josh and Thamy into the van and drove them back to El Eliquete, this time to stay. Josh had some time to think on the drive.
I can do this. 45 days. What's 45 days?
But then he got back to El Eliquete, and a guard showed him to the place where he would be living alone for those 45 days. There was nothing in Josh's background to prepare him for his new home.
They were black plastic garbage bags taped up against the bars so you couldn't see the inside of the actual cell itself. She opened the door and I looked in, and as soon as I stepped in, all these cockroaches just went up against the walls and into this pile of clothing/bedding. And then she shut the door behind me.
The cell was about as wide as a twin-sized bed and maybe just a couple of feet longer. Josh looked around at the walls. Someone, or maybe more than one someone, had written on the walls with black permanent marker.
just writings and sayings of different things from the Bible, things that people had written down, gang signs. And I just remember looking at it and just thinking, wow, I can't believe that I'm here.
8 or 10 feet up, there were a couple of tiny openings in which Josh could see a couple of non-functioning fans. 2 fluorescent bulbs flooded the cell with light. The lights burned day and night.
I kind of paced for a little bit. I didn't really want to get the bedding stuff down. I didn't want to take it out and just see what I was really going to have to live with.
Eventually, though, he did. He shook off the cockroaches and tried to ignore the flies. It didn't help that the temperature in the cell was sweltering. No air flowed from those high windows. The plastic on the door blocked airflow from that.
So I remember taking all my clothes off other than just my underwear and just laying on this disgusting brown pad thing that they gave me that just smelled bad. And I just knew, I was like, okay, you know what? 45 days, I can do this.
It's hard to say who had the worst situation. Josh was isolated in a cramped cell with a 2-liter bottle for any bathroom needs. Thamy, meanwhile, found herself in a cell with 2 bathrooms that she had to share with more than 24 other women.
Ok, dormíamos 33 mujeres en un cuarto con 2 baños.
33 women slept in one room with 2 bathrooms. We slept in bunk beds above and below. When I arrived to my cell, they gave me a towel, toothpaste, toothbrush. They gave me flip-flops. And the first few days, I had to sleep with a girl because there wasn't space for me. In the same bed, on the floor, on a 2-inch mattress.
En la misma cama, en el piso, en un colchón como de 2 pulgadas.
Both of them went through almost a kind of hazing process.
My first week was so bad. They hit me.
The other women or the guards?
The other women, they hit me. And I think it's not okay, but I understand because you are new in a new place. With time, I understand they did that to me because I was thinking I was a cop.
Like a snitch?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They thought that you were there to tell on them.
Yeah. Every time when someone new get in the jail, they did the same.
Alone in his cell, no one physically hurt Josh, but it was disgusting.
I just remember cockroaches always crawling over me, and I'd flick them off, and eventually it gets to the point to where you just kind of get used to it.
Josh's mind raced. He thought about ways to convince the government of his innocence as sweat dripped down his face and into his eyes. The things he would tell an attorney, if and when he finally got one. Whether his friends and family had any idea what was going on. Would they be able to protect him or help him from so far away? He thought about a video he sent home just before everything went sideways. He had walked around Tammy's apartment, showing how they did laundry without a dryer. They laid clothes out across the couch and chairs, pretty much every available surface, including the suitcase where the Sabine said the grenade was.
Even in the spare bedroom where my suitcases were, we had my suitcase flipped open, and we had socks going along the outside of the suitcase so that the socks could dry. And I went through this entire apartment filming, and that video for me was proof that there was nothing in there. I mean, I literally filmed my suitcase, and you would be able to see that there's nothing in there. And so there was these little tiny things that I just kept thinking about that I could tell the jury or my lawyer or whoever I could tell to prove my innocence, because I was innocent and I knew it.
During that long first hot day, Josh got a small meal, some rice, and a little bit of meat.
And I remember taking 45 pieces of rice that first night, setting those aside, and every single day I'd throw one of those pieces of rice away. For me, it was a way that I could tell at least where I was at in the process.
Next time on Hope in Darkness.
Just laying on the ground in my underwear, sweating profusely, cockroaches crawling all over me, and I was in just aggravating pain.
Hope in Darkness is written and produced by me, Becky Bruce. Additional producing and editing came from Nina Ernest. Sound mixing by Trent Sell. Our executive producer is Cheryl Worsley. Original theme composed by Michael Bonmiller. Additional voice work provided by Rebecca Cressman and Alex Curie. Special thanks to Josh and Thamy Holt and their family for sharing their experiences and story. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hope Darkness Pod or online at hopedarkness.com. And your feedback is always helpful. Drop us a rating or review wherever you listen. Hope in Darkness is a KSL podcast.